Greetings. We are meeting mid-April 2022. We're talking about the nature of the times going into May of this year. Some very interesting, potent, dense, exciting times that we are in. There are things that need to be addressed. There are new things being born and initiated. And as we oftentimes observe here on earth, things can be born out of death, transformation, crisis. So we are all on a healing journey this month of April 2022. We are in between the last lunar cycle that began with a new moon joined with the wounded healer Chiron. And our forthcoming new moon will be a partial solar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. Now this month of April, born under the new moon with Chiron, is a period where we are healing. And there is an alert system that is directing us to where attention needs to be brought. This season has brought attention to our bodies, to our energy, to our physical health. This is also about addressing needs for freedom, independence, and autonomy. Chiron in Aries can be a healing through a separation. It can be a healing of codependency through the necessary exposure to being more on our own, to being more independent. Again, this can also be a time period that is birthing new directions, which can be born out of our experience of crisis or our need for healing. Certainly that is what we are all about here at Rasa Leela Healing. I suggest for those of you who may be struggling, isolated, needing help or support, please join our community. There is a free community, there is a membership community, but the intentions of this community, as I'm going to continue to direct energy and resources towards, is providing support to those in need, especially those struggling with being on their own, isolating, and simply needing someone to bear witness or to lend a shoulder to lean on or an ear to listen. We talk about the full moon in Libra coming up on the 16th, ruled by Venus. There is an opportunity for us to be listeners to one another, for us to communicate from the heart. There is a lot of changing to how we can be working with others, how we are earning money, how we are receiving support. This is what I would say is the underlying need of this time. Now, some interesting distinguishing astrology going on the next couple of days is tomorrow, the 12th, Jupiter conjoins Neptune at 24 degrees the sign of Pisces. And this is, I find not shockingly, very talked about in the astro community and particularly the New Age circles, because there is very much a dreaming, surreal, psychedelic, opening up to possibilities, tuning into the reality of synchronicity, being led by our ideals, our goals, and our dreams. And there is indeed this potential to very much open up to new possibilities. Okay, I'll talk about this transit being an opportunity to really return to what is essential. What is the purpose for living our life? What does it mean to be a human? What is the potential of being a human? And the opportunity here is to really return to our essential virtues. What is goodness? What is hospitality? What is healing? What is compassion? What is charity? Okay, so there's this tuning into this wisdom. And what I would suggest is that this redirecting, because Jupiter is like our compass, so this can be like receiving a download or an update where we're opening to new possibilities, receiving new information in terms of belief system, our orientation to the whole of life. It's like there is a new cycle beginning where we are surrendering and opening to a new orientation to life. And what I would suggest here is that we make that as essential, returning to base elements as much as possible. This is what Neptune in Pisces is. Base elements, raw nature. Just like the forces of nature itself, earth, fire, wind, water, we can return to this absolute simplicity of our alignment to life. In a philosophical way, this is aligning with the forces of goodness. What does it mean to be good is in alignment with providing health and well-being to the whole, including ourselves, including what's around us. But we may have observed that human beings have created so many religions, so many prescriptions, so many schools of thought, and have defined goodness into so many different structures, practices, activities, belief systems. And what I would suggest is that we return to the most base and simple elements of what goodness is. How can we take care of ourselves? How can we uplift our brother and sister? How can we provide back to the world around us? This is where the zodiac leads us. The final sign of Pisces is the reality that our ultimate satisfaction comes from us offering our individuality back to the collective. We must discover our individual nature, what we are born to be, and we discover ultimate satisfaction in offering our individual nature in some service back to the world around us. Okay. So this is a time of dreaming why we are alive. And I find it kind of humorous that this is going to be what's very exciting and talked about and focused upon in New Age circles, where today the moon's nodes in the Taurus Scorpio polarity squares Saturn in Aquarius. And Saturn is forgotten. It's like Saturn is not what we care to focus upon or, really include in our perspective of reality, because Saturn tends to give us more of the challenges. Now that's where Saturn square the nodes is a need for us to recognize our capabilities in the 3D, in the real world. What we're building, what we're constructing, what we're organizing, what we are achieving that is measurable, that is provable. And the whole point here is Jupiter-Neptune is a part of the overall cosmological signature of the times. It's a part of the astrology. It's a part of our consciousness, and so is Saturn. And the Saturn squares the nodes is saying if we want to dream these realities into being, we have to make it work in reality. We have to pay attention to the 3D. So Saturn square the nodes today is saying now is the time to be accountable, to step up, not to outsource our power or blame on external authority figures, but to recognize our capability, the accountability that we have for our own reality. It doesn't mean that life is necessarily easy. It means that we can, despite the challenges of life, work to build and create an improved reality, an improved structure. For example, Saturn is very much the actual life need to contribute back to the world and society. You may have noticed that very Capricorn souls have this overall type of orientation. There's a strong desire to contribute back to society, but this is in fact an evolutionary task for the species, for mankind. Now, I will add, this is where there's been a tremendous distortion and overemphasis in our man-made societies, constructed religions, etc., that said, well, you've got to achieve this much, you've got to contribute this much in this way, so you've got to fight the wars, you've got to put in this many hours at, our job. And it's like, that can be a potentially very enslaving society. I think we are all in agreement there. But we can also build structures, systems, organizations, companies. We can become the CEO. We can become the boss. We have the same capabilities that these other bosses and CEOs that we're oftentimes pointing the finger at for destroying the species or the world. We can do what they can do. It doesn't mean that we have a silver spoon put in our mouth. It means that it's possible. We can organize, we can build, we can start grassroots movements. This is possible. And furthermore, it is what is needed right now. That is the signature of Saturn square the nodes. That is why we cannot ignore or overlook Saturn at this time. By the way, plug for my Astro School. In February, I uploaded a lesson, All the Planets Square the Nodes. And I give an in-depth description of what that signature means in a natal chart. And I find this to be one of the most important things that you can see in a birth chart that is not known in pop astrology or known even by many astrologers. So check out what's in the Astro School. This is information that can change the course of an individual's life. If you have a planet square your moon's nodes in your natal chart, that's a very important signature. As it is with Saturn square the nodes right now, it says that we need to grow up, we need to be the parents for ourselves. We can do it, and we have to apply the conscious effort to be the authority, to be in charge, to flex our muscles and prove what is possible. Prove it. Okay? Jupiter, Neptune, dreaming, downloading what's possible. And this is going to be broken in. It's like when we're receiving these downloads, as they can be going on this month, it doesn't flower and bloom into all of the fruits overnight. It's a seed sowing for what is possible. And then Saturn is square the moon's nodes through the rest of this year. We have to apply the conscious effort step by step, layer by layer. If it's a project, it's how many resources do we have? How much money do we have to spend on resources? How much time is it going to be to lay this level? How many people do we need to hire? That's Saturn world. The Saturn in Aquarius is a signature for an architectural, skeletal type of wisdom and a structure that in particular can be built through networking, the internet, community building. That's how we can change our way of living in a way that works differently. And that's going to be the theme of these forthcoming eclipses. Another plug for the website. If you have a membership for my community, I already have video on the forthcoming eclipses coming up at the end of this month and May. There's a lot to do with money, agriculture, property, big shifts in the economy. So that's what we're talking about. How can we survive? How can we have enough? And we do have enough. We have such limiting beliefs, especially in some of these first world, quote unquote, cultures and societies. You know, something that I observe is one of the most common limiting beliefs here in the United States, and I assume many other places, is people believe they have to work for a big company. They have to sell their soul to a 9-to-5 desk job. They have to have some authority rubber stamp or approve what they're doing before they feel safe, trusting, confident to do something that they are capable in and of themselves. Folks, it's the time to recognize what you can do. Don't outsource or give away your power to authorities externally to yourself that are going to oppress or limit or be uncaring. You know, Saturn square the nodes can be dehumanizing. We can see dehumanizing groups, activities, orientations going on in the world and society just as much as that can be pushing us to create a society that's not dehumanizing. That is, again, part of the intentions of what I'm working on with this community. I'm so much speaking towards is this isn't just supposed to be a money-making, daydreaming. It's like, let's create a way of bringing together people and resources that are going to help us get educated in a humanitarian type of way, supporting artists, musicians, healers, therapists, to help struggling people with our bodies, our nervous systems, and generally we're struggling to be humans. So we need help on how to be a human. Saturn square the nodes in Aquarius, this is what I want to say here. It's like we have already survived this first wave of COVID, not to open that can of worms, but that was a stressful experience collectively for our humanity. And in a stereotypical, our species having a 2-second memory, it's like we've already forgotten that just happened. Now everybody's trying to run back and return to normal, which is always how we are in these self-defeating loops of running back into the past. We do this on an individual level to oppress ourselves on a soul level as well. Oh, we're just run back into that comfort zone the way it was before. Everything has changed. But a big part of what's changed is we've become stronger. We went through and are still going through and will still go through a war time type of environment. Not to get overly exaggerating, but that type of vibe is going on. And we are survivors. That's what Saturn maturity is about, coming into a toughness, having a thick enough skin that is not fearful, that's not immature. We can go out there in the world and we can shake our stick. We can build our structure. We can create our own laws and rules and ways of living. This is Saturn and Aquarius. It is creating community. It is creating a new structure for species consciousness. The interconnectivity of people is what Aquarius is all about. Now, in my last video, I remember saying, Saturn square the nodes. So, what you don't want to do is just have your parents take care of you and, just coast through life and just, not step it up. And reflecting on that, I've recognized that I probably need to be careful doing this type of work and communication because people probably take me literally. So what I mean by that is that we do need to step it up. We need to be the authority. We need to take control as opposed to just give away our control to somebody else. But I don't want to say anything that's limiting people's supporting one another. So of course, if you're receiving support, that's wonderful. We all need to be practicing and asserting effort, communicating our needs, so that way we can provide and receive what we need in new, improved, and innovative ways. That's going to continue to be a bottom line intention through the rest of this year of 2022 with the moon's north node in Taurus. Conjoined Uranus under the forthcoming solar eclipse. This summertime, it's like time to reinvent livelihood. Time to reinvent base elements. So right now, this can be happening on an ethereal level with this Jupiter-Neptune, dreaming a new way of supporting one another. And the base level, which we could say is the spiritual world, our souls that truly love and care about one another, supporting one another through what is known as love. And love is the base level. That is, again, the essence. We want to minimalize all of the religious, spiritual bullshit that can clutter our potential for goodness. Because we all see through any religion where that potential for bullshit can obstruct what is basic goodness. One of my favorite quotes by a spiritual teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, is folks were saying, how do I raise my kundalini? How do I get enlightened? How do I get spiritual powers? He said, feed people, clothe people. There was once an example where somebody was in one of his temples and this person was being an asshole, saying terrible things about Neem Karoli Baba, saying terrible things about the very nice, caring people that were there. And you can imagine some people got upset about this. What Neem Karoli Baba said, why are you getting upset? This person is hungry. Feed them. What are we doing judging one another for our topical conditions, how polite we are, our emotional expressions on the surface, when we all have base missing needs? Again, I know I'm speaking a lot about my community, but this is to reflect collective intentions because I'm attempting to create something in alignment with collective intentions. Why? Because that's what astrology can be. Astrology doesn't have to be this crazy talking about things disconnected from reality. We can talk about what's going on here right now, what we need here and now, and how we can provide what we need here and now. So what we need is to create structures that are actually focused upon providing what people need and not these bypassy, spiritual, cult-like belief systems that imprison people in blaming themselves, feeling guilty or inadequate for being a human being and having fundamental missing needs. Our needs goes beyond just food, shelter, water, but let's start there. That's where we are starting. That's where we are lacking, many of us, so let's start there. But let's create intentional circles to support what we actually need to get out of these weird superstitions and spiritual bypassing, because those worlds can also be tremendously empowering. For example, using psychedelics. Here's Jupiter, Neptune trine to the South Node in Scorpio. This can be a time where such medicine and powerful healing is showing its potential. This can change lives. This can heal the soul on very, very deep levels. Okay? And so there needs to be systems on how to handle that and how to support people through that process, which is going to include grieving and mourning, really intense emotions, letting go of people that we've loved, processing prior relationships. Let's start with creating community, Saturn and Aquarius, that's helping people to be people. How do we have relationships? How do we ask for what we need from other people? How do we learn to listen? Where have each and every one of us formed coping mechanisms out of our past traumas? Where are we finding support from other souls that have experienced similar traumas and formed similar coping mechanisms to ourselves? You know what I would like to see in the future? I'd like to see a Codependence Anonymous, Spiritual Narcissist Anonymous, Freeze Response Anonymous, for groups of people that are consciously working on their own path of healing, and not in these dissociated, bypassing, saving the world on a mission, fighting evil, fighting darkness. Let's get back to what we see is what we get. What are we dealing with in the 3D? What do we need? Basic needs. And again, this starts off with food, water, shelter, but it's going to turn into more needs than that. We need to have touch. We have sexual needs. We have to have a need for actual group and community. For any healing or therapy to work, we need more than one therapist. We need more than one therapy. Saturn and Aquarius, how are we creating holistic structures for interconnectivity of holistic ways of living, communing, exchanging resources? That's what we can work on this year of 2022. May time, when we get into our forthcoming eclipses, it's simply going to kick off this period. We might get a little bit of a push into how we are working, getting money, exchanging resources, because it's a very unpredictable time period we're going into globally. We're talking about economies and we're talking about nations. Everything is about to change. Now, through the rest of this month, Mercury is in Taurus, went into Taurus in the 10th through the 29th. Mercury is going to join Uranus this week on the 17th. Mid-April, it's this dreaming, well, I should say it's experimental, innovative cooking through testing. And Mercury in Taurus is much more pragmatic. It's focusing on what we want to right now, what we like to. It is focusing on money and resources and exchanges and how can we make this work and how can we provide what we need and what we like to create these types of structures. When Mercury squares Saturn next week on the 24th, there's a bit of a pressure to really get these people connected, these ideas structured, to start these ways of working and exchanging resources. Nice to have Venus exalted in Pisces from April 5th through May 2nd. Again, this theme of tuning into goodness as the base level, love as the base level, forming support with people who actually care at the base level, finding and dreaming our hobbies into recognition that this is what we love, so this is what we can do, dreaming this into being, how we are connecting, running our relationships and exchanging, okay? So the full moon coming up on the 16th does have this theme of dreams and ideals versus and being integrated with harmonious functioning in relationship. The full moon is quincunx the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So it's like, okay, all of this dreaming, all of this downloading, it can be like a psychedelic, whoa, all of this is possible. And then how are we going to share this from our hearts? How are we going to communicate this? How can we turn this into a service, a collaboration, an art form, an expression, a show and telling of some way? How are we going to bring other people into these dreams? How are we going to make these dreams modality for self-expression, communication? There's a new language we're breathing into being. It also puts a pressure on our relationships. The full moon squares Pluto in Capricorn. There is a transition taking place in April. Venus and Mars were together this year up until this point. There's kind of this shifting. There again may be a healing through individualization, through separation. We've got to do our own thing, and then we come together and see how it's going to work once we've changed the actual dynamic, and we're working to change the actual dynamic. We're seeking therapists. We're seeking outside support. We're looking to shift the values of how we're working together, our intimate relationships, our work associates. What does that mean? What are we building towards? We're opening up to more experimental and innovative ways of relating, earning money, and dealing with resources. Again, that is the theme of the day, the bottom line that I keep coming to and will continue to return to, especially through May of this next year. Finally, Mars goes into Pisces on April 14th, remains there through the end of May. Eclipses are in between periods. I notice a lot of people move. Sometimes they're shifting jobs, relationship changes. Eclipses are significant. One last astrological plug. The reason why eclipses are significant is they are new or full moons that align with the moon's nodes. They happen every 6 months. They are one of the most excitable astrological times because everybody has experiences and people recognize, lo and behold, astrology is real. This month in my astro school, there's probably going to be about 6 hours of video material I am putting out, taking the moon's nodes through all 12 zodiac sign polarities. This is this is the most important information in the birth chart. So you're going to be able to get a lot of information from you or anybody else's birth chart by subscribing to my astro school, only $36 a month. It's, again, life-changing, life-validating information. This is what our life is about, what's reflected in the themes of the moon's nodes. So again, that's coming out to the Astro School this next month. But this next month, I'll be talking about it. It's going to introduce the Taurus-Scorpio polarity. Money, resources, land, food, agriculture, space versus claustrophobia, sovereignty versus power dynamics, when we're unable to escape the interferences of others versus where we need to go off and do it on our own and build it on our own. These are collective themes. So get ready. It's going to be an exciting eclipse season this next month of May 2022. Mars in Pisces simultaneously is kind of reflecting this similar in-between period. It's a time where there is an exploration of what is possible. What can we initiate? Where are we going to be channeling our energy and our resources? So the bottom line is be very flexible. Be open to experimentation. We may not want to put all our eggs in one basket until we know that it is aligning with the evolutionary intentions of the time. That North Node in Taurus, it's going to make our life easier, more sovereign, more self-resourceful, more minimalized, more spacious, more open, more free, more focused on what we love, on what we value. We're creating the life that reflects back to us what we value, environments that contain what we love and value, anchoring the wisdom of the earth, the body, slowness, appreciation of our life experience, appreciation of the rising and setting sun, the rotation of the earth, the changing of the seasons, the rhythm of our own biological clock. Until next time, I look forward to reconnecting with all y'all biological clocks. And again, you're welcome to join an ever ongoing conversation at rasalilacommunity.com.